Hi, I'm Ben Reinberg. We had a lot of terrific guests and conversations this year on I Own It. I want to thank you for listening and sharing your thoughts and feedback with me. As we approach the end of the year, I want to reshare portions of some of my favorite conversations on the podcast this year. This is a chance for you to catch up on great conversations you may have missed. And if it happens to be an episode you've heard before, you could re-listen or fast forward to the next conversation. Thank you, and I wish you happy holidays.
Welcome to the I Own It podcast with Ben Reinberg.
So let's talk about the intention behind your motivational speaking. And the MBS method is linked to helping people accomplish a personal transformation. I was hoping when we got together, ask you a bit of a philosophical question up front. There's a Chinese proverb curse. May you find what you're looking for and realize it is not the answer. Do you agree with the sentiment in that proverb? And how do you help people transform towards something that they will find they actually like when they arrive there?
Wow, beautiful proverb and beautiful way to phrase the question. You see, sometimes what we wish for, we don't really want. Sometimes what we wish for, we forget to fill in the details. Sometimes we want to manifest or achieve a certain goal, but we leave out all the details. And so society or somebody else fills it in for us. And so truly, you must love and want what you want to achieve so much wholeheartedly from every ounce of your being, so that when you get there, you love it just as much as you did along the journey of getting there. And perhaps the journey was a struggle, so the destination is more fulfilling. But then when you get to the destination, the goalpost is going to move again, as I was saying. And so when you want something, lean into that and want it wholeheartedly. And the more feeling of passion and excitement and drive you can add towards it, the more it will come.
So the key tenet of your MBS, your meditational behavior synchronicity method, is change conscientious state to be less resistant, more open to a new mindset and facts. I believe there's a neuroscience to research closely linked to your approach.
Yeah.
And share more about how the science works and what experience is it like for your clients.
So the MBS method is something that can be used by anybody. It's a powerful method that helps you to access your higher mind faculties. You go into the alpha state. Right now we're in beta. When we meditate, when we deep breathe, when we do certain exercises, we go into the alpha state and then into theta. And when we're asleep, delta. These are slower brain waves, which means that we're more impressionable. It means that our subconscious mind is easier to feed new programming to. It's easier to rewire your subconscious mind, your mindset, when in an altered state of awareness, an altered state of consciousness, which is in the alpha or theta state.
So powerful. I love that. So I fully believe there's an altered state of consciousness, whether through deep meditation, psychedelic drugs, or other natural ways. When I was reading the MBS approach, I wasn't sure I totally understood how you view varying states of consciousness and how it's linked to assisting personal transformation. Share more about these kinds of consciousness and which ones have you been focusing on?
Beautiful. There definitely are altered states of consciousness. And, people use psychedelics to get there. I deeply know through high elevated states of breath work, you can get to very similar places of DMT releases, etc. It's a whole separate topic. I focus through breath work on going to the theta state. That for me is the most powerful, knowing that I've gone through alpha and I'm in theta. How do you know you're there? Because there are certain things you can do. You could hold something in your hand, and when it starts to fall out, it's that place just before you're sleeping. And it's so slow to try and think of a thought. It takes forever to have that thought. It could take me 1 hour to have the visualization I'm trying to have. It's such an amazing state.
Okay. So as I was telling you, I recently got into meditation and have a meditation practice multiple times a day. Do you have daily meditation rituals?
So Yes, I practice multiple times a day. Not every day. I am human. So like we do, I must like make people aware. I meditate every day, not multiple times a day every day. I aim to.
Is there a meditation school or approach that most resonates with you?
Absolutely, my own. Through my MBS method, which is, on my own podcast, it's just every Saturday is a meditation. And it is so beautiful. On the Law of Attraction Secrets podcast, we have every Saturday a new style meditation. That is honestly one of the most powerful things that I gave to myself and the world. I listen to my own meditations. I've created them for myself. I create them for my clients. So a lot of my sort of A-list stars, my top level entrepreneurs, 9-10 figure entrepreneurs, I create personalized affirmation tapes for them. And they are unbelievable. They are hardwired for that person with their name, with exactly what they want to achieve. It's so personal to them. And so then I use a similar approach without obviously the personality of the name and stuff on the podcast with the meditation that I do. I do it every single morning when I wake up. As I'm coming out of the alpha or theta state back into beta, I love to wake up, press play on a meditation. I have it ready on my phone the night before, airplane mode on, off airplane mode, and on it goes.
What does meditating do for you? Like for me, it helps me not get triggered, be calm, better negotiator, better listener, more in a state of love, not in fear. What does it do for you?
Meditation has enabled me to get that habit going to prioritize myself. And then the effects of it have been monumental. I truly deeply overcame the illness I had. It was really hard having an autoimmune disease. I had a hyperactive thyroid. Listen to the wording, hyperactive. For someone who's all over the place like this, shaking all the time. And so it calmed all of those racing thoughts. It calmed the fear. It calmed the PTSD. It calmed the actual sickness. So I was able to relax and come back into the present moment. Meditation has transformed my life.
Amazing. What does the law of attraction mean to you personally?
The law of attraction for me has been so present in my life. I realize whether you believe it or not, it's in action. The law of attraction, action being the last part. It's happening all around you. If you understand how to apply it in your life, that's the power. Because you now understand that your thoughts become things. Your thoughts become your feelings become your actions become your habits, and your habits are you. We are just a bag of habits by the age of about 30. And so I tapped into the law of attraction on such a profound level, and then wanted to bring people on the show who you don't often hear from speaking about self-development, personal development, and hear how they've applied it in their own life, perhaps some of them without even knowing it. Being true to who you are is the most important thing. And if somebody doesn't like it, you do not need to give them your time. They are not worth your time. There are so many other people that will love you and will love what you do. Be it till you become it are the true words of becoming it before you are there. Not faking it, not pretending it, doing it, being it. You don't wait to be the perfect husband when you're married. You don't wait till you're married to be him. You become him today. You don't wait to be the best partner in a relationship when you're in it. You do it today. You become who you want to be today, and then it becomes who you are.
Oh, I love that. How do you feel you're progressing towards accomplishing it? And are there new big things you plan to expand your reach?
I'd say we're reaching over 500 million between all the different influencer accounts. That doesn't mean that we're reaching that every day. That means through all these people, potentially we could have reached that number when we add all the followings together and all the eyeballs of TV I've been on and anything else, podcasts, listens, etc. So 500 million potential people. But to get to the billion is going to be a real, it's not going to be easy. And I like a challenge. But I know that that is the number I need to reach in order to really have accomplished my personal purpose. Everyone has a different thing. For me, reaching that number means that I am helping people who were broken.
So you're involved in a lot of charities. Yeah. Share more about the organization you're involved with and how can more people get involved in them?
The power of this charity is so phenomenal. I'm so excited to go see it, but I just built a school for the charity. I donated a school in Guatemala, and it's a beautiful charity because Pencils of Promise really go above and beyond what I know from a lot of charities I've supported and still support. They're very unique. They help communities in Guatemala, Laos, and Ghana, the communities to build schools, and beyond just building a school in third world places, to actually give them facilities like the common bathroom, to give them menstrual hygiene workshops, to give them cleaning facilities so they can wash their hands. The poor babies and children don't go to school for weeks at a time. They even miss years / they lose their lives over the illnesses that occur in their life and that happen to them because of lack of cleanliness and general hygiene, which is so easy for us. It's so accessible. We have clean water in a bottle. We have hand sanitizer and we can wash our hands in clean water, but these kids don't have it. So it goes not just for the children and not just for the 600 odd kids who are there, or 1,000 kids. It goes to their families. They get to go home with these products, and the families get to be involved, the communities.
So similar to my company Alliance, we talk about pandemic and recession resilient real estate. Recession resilience is something you discuss a lot in your investor materials. It's also something we do, especially being an owner operator around the United States of medical properties. And we've had a lot of success focusing on that strategy. Share more about what makes your investments recession resilient.
Yeah, well, recession resiliency, when I was using that word a while ago, it hadn't had as much marketing, I guess, really plugged into it. It was really a strategy to say, how do we create a model or invest in assets that will survive the test of time? Because real estate, as we all know, is a very cyclical business. It's very much connected to inflation and interest rates, and a few key indicators. And so when those cycles come up and down, they ebb and flow inevitably. You want to make sure, if this is your objective, is to have consistency. So we didn't want to be a group that was going for massive returns and taking massive risks. So our philosophy has always been really around capital preservation. And there's a lot of groups that, have made a lot bigger returns than we have historically. That wasn't my focus. My focus was to say, can we create inherent diversity? Could we create an element of stability? Although, nothing's guaranteed. And
I absolutely agree with that. So much of real estate investment comes down to supply and demand. And one article I read mentioned that you mentioned Google Fiber investment in Texas was a part of what inspired you.
That was the biggest inflection point. If there was one unilateral inflection point that made kind of the sirens go off, that my little sleepy town, Austin, because everybody thinks Austin is a city. It's not. It's a town on steroids. Yeah. This is not. And again, it's my hometown. And when you see cities, in New York is another one where, nobody's really born in Manhattan per se. Actually, our daughter was born in Manhattan, ironically enough, but everybody are transient, and that's the beauty of it. It's what gives it diversity. And Austin is no different. And when we were watching Austin grow, seeing, all the reasons why people would want to be there, music, parks, and we actually have more public parks than any top 10 city in the United States. Which is interesting. You have a good balance between the kind of the right and left kind of political parties, which actually has done really, really well for the city. And, you can get to Texas pretty quickly from Austin. It only takes about, 20 or 30 minutes and you can be in Texas. So you get that island benefit of having Texas, but not being in Texas, I guess people feel.
Well, how do you think about supply and demand when you're assessing investment opportunities? Because obviously, you moved back home and you saw Google Fibers coming in. There was demand. We've done business in Austin for decades. And I was wondering, is this really going to happen? Because I saw the storefront on, I can't remember what street that was on.
On Congress.
Yeah, it was on Congress. And it kept sitting and sitting and sitting. And we're saying, well, one day maybe this will happen. But when you're assessing about supply and demand, what are you looking for when you're assessing investment opportunities?
One of the things that we focused on, that's really our, I guess by default has become our niche in a lot of ways is zoning and rezoning properties. Like that has really been something we have focused on heavily and seen a lot of success for our clients. And the strategy that we're building for this next big tranche acquisition really centers around zoning. And zoning is, I was joking with somebody the other day that, a lot of the big shops think zoning is like about numbers on a spreadsheet and and like kind of an accountant's job, but it's not.
That's great. No, I love that. We have a similar approach. What inspired you to get into property development as opposed to buying and selling existing assets? I mean,
Being ADD.
What's that?
Being ADD or attention deficit advantage. I say that because what's not real estate. I was talking to my wife about this. Well, everything that anybody does, you have to be somewhere. Like whether you're in a house, you're in a hotel, you digitize the world, you work from home. So your house is your office now. I mean, meaning everything that happens in this world has to happen on something, but for, the Navy being in the middle of the ocean but most of us live on land, right? And I loved it because it allows me to know just enough about a lot of things to be dangerous. Like when we are retail centers, looking at the sales per foot of Starbucks or, understanding what's going on in JCPenney or Target, kind of allows you to stick your hand in all these different things. And then when you're in development, you're working through labor issues, you're looking with financing, you're looking through equities, you're how people live, how people eat, where they shop. And so you kind of get this very wide lens of microcosms of how the world actually operates, which is wildly interesting to me. So the nuts and bolts of, building a property, we have teams of people, our GCs, our development partners are leaps and bounds better and more equipped than I am to handle that part of it. But dealing with the community, dealing with ancillary property owners, negotiating with brokers and meeting with bankers and being able to play with economics and inflation all the way down to, just installing tile in an apartment or allows me to stay very, very, very curious and always learning, because with that many things and that many different modalities, there's no way to know it all or even a fraction of it. So it allows you to continuously learn and not get bored, quite frankly.
Let's switch gears a little bit. So one thing that I appreciate about you, and about a year ago, I started to get into meditation. And you're into health too. And I understand you have a strong meditation practice.
I do.
What I always like to learn, and my audience as well, what are your rituals? Like, what about meditation makes you encourage your colleagues to meditate as well? Like, how often are you doing it? Explain to me your ritual every day.
It's I'd agree with Ray Dalio that it's the most important thing that I've ever learned with respect to kind of external success, I guess, or what people would call success. My definition of success, I think, is a little bit might be a little bit different that people that don't know me think about it. I'm not a money worshiper by any stretch of the imagination. People ask me, how do you make big money? I basically say solve big problems. And so we've done well because we've solved a lot of big fucking problems, right? But in order to do that, you have to have equanimity. So I think one of the most overlooked things in our society is physical alignment. And that's not just stretching, because if you're in a bad alignment, you go to stretch, you're going to quite literally overstretch. So I spend a significant amount of time every day rebalancing my vertical load, getting my neck in the right position, shoulders, hips, etc. Because, I look at it and say, okay, if you eat really healthy, and anyone that knows me knows I'm a health freak, to say the least. But if you eat perfectly healthy and you work out every day, but you're slouched over and you're smashing your intestines, all the good health in the world, it's not going to work. So by realigning the body and putting the organs, so to speak, in the right configurations, you can decrease the likelihood of heart attacks, all sorts of different cancers and diseases.
Okay. Well, that's nice. And what inspired you to create the house? What was the foundation?
Started with a vision board. It started with a vision board years ago. And again, when you're a poor kid with nothing, you don't have anything but your imagination and your thoughts. And it started from just having a couple clippings of a newspaper or something. And, and then it turned into like a cardboard board of like what you would call a vision board. Then it converted into my office to making one of my office rooms. If you look at the Austin Monthly did a cover story on me back in August, I think, August or September. And there's a picture in there where they had a glimpse of me. I was taking the part of the Dream Lab down, but it basically broke up lines of different categories like relationship, finance. And I urge everybody to have a goal in every category of your life because you're a real person. And if you don't have some goal or some vision for every major category of your life, the success in one of them will not give you the feeling of fulfillment that you're actually looking for unless you achieve things in other categories. So I basically put up every category that I could think of, put pictures and things on it that I wanted to achieve, and realized how profound the benefit was, and then turned it into kind of a little apartment in one of our buildings I kind of walk into, and then started working so fucking well that I turned it into a house. So it's been a natural iteration. And again, men lie, women lie, numbers don't lie. So every time I've looked at the business and every time the the Dream Lab has improved, the business has grown exponentially. So I'm not asking questions. I'm just,
I'm just following suit.
Just following suit.
That's great. I love that. Being commercial real estate and an entrepreneur like myself, and I could appreciate this, we're pulled in a lot of directions. You want to meditate, you got your supplements, you want to work out, you want to eat healthy. We're being pulled by a lot of people. You have employees, projects going on. It's just, the list goes on and on, right? The auctioneering persona is very unique. And is it a muscle you could turn on off to somehow differentiate you? And when did you realize you wanted to be an auctioneer?
So it was right at the end when I won that competition, and I'll set sort of the premise for you a little bit, Ben. So in Australia, if you want to get the highest price for a property, especially luxury real estate, you auction. It's very different in the States because auctions are often used for distressed sales or less prestigious. But in Australia, I mean, you're talking in some of the states, 1,300 auctions happen every weekend. So it's very sort of mainstream. And I kind of started to enjoy the pattern of obviously connecting with people, selling their biggest asset, finding some pretty nice homes, but also this was a skill set that I think I'd sort of unintentionally developed at acting school as well. So it was sort of combining some skill sets that I'd unintentionally learnt.
You brought up a good point. I've been in commercial real estate for 29 years as an owner, a landlord. And whenever we use an auction company, it's always about maybe we have a distressed situation. We're struggling to lease a property. And it's different in Australia. And I was doing the research. I'm glad you brought it up because it seems more mainstream, and that it's really a privilege when you could have a great auctioneer auction off your property, because that seems to be a common element that they do down under. Compare the United States, when people look at an auction, they think, you know what? There's a real opportunity to get a great buy. We use a firm called 10X, which is big in commercial real estate, as you might have heard of them. Human nature is something else, huh? I mean, obviously the 2 million profit guy, probably were his expectations, but it's also leans into gratitude, and some people just get it and are appreciative of the people involved in life and the value, and some people don't even get it. And you're going to go through that, especially in real estate. I see, it's the same thing with our investors. You can make them huge profit, great IRR, and it's always about the next deal. You can never enjoy the win, so to speak. So I always tell everyone out there is that enjoy the wins in your life. So for example, a win for me is spending time with you today. That's a win. Enjoying our company. That's a win. And I think a lot of people, James, have trouble enjoying wins in life and taking a step back and being grateful for it. How does a typical auctioneer business work? I mean, what are you allowed to charge? How does it work if you're selling a home? And, let's say in residential real estate, I don't dabble too much in it, except for my own residential properties I might live in. They might take 6 or 5% of that. How does it work in an auction? What are those economics?
That's a great question because it's based on the area. So for example, back in Australia, because it is done such a common way, I would say 99% of the time, the auction house charges an upfront fee. And that is whether the property sells prior, doesn't sell, but it's basically for their time booking the auction in. And a lot of people sometimes can get on an auction company can get on a very successful business model because you might get let's just say you get 200 properties go to auction that month, and 70 of them sell prior, you've already been cut a check for those 70, literally, for just booking them in. Where you make that up is obviously, like I mentioned, you sell a property for 8 million and the reserve was 6. People would look at that and think, well, imagine if you had a cut of the commission, that would have been far better use for your time. So it makes itself up a little. In the States, because the commissions are a lot higher, you can negotiate a commission far more easier. So it's a cut of the commission plus an upfront fee for in the States. In Europe, it's very similar. You take a fee up front and then there's a cut of the commission. Unfortunately, in Australia, it's just the upfront fee. But surprisingly, just to put it into perspective, so if you sell a property as a broker in Australia, I mean, look, Sydney, Melbourne, the main capital cities, I mean, your broker fee is going to be maybe 1.5%, maybe even 2%. To put in perspective, you sell in California, it's like 3% for the listing, 3% for the selling. Selling and listing agent splits 6%. There's just such a greater range for the actual broker themselves to sort of bring you in.
Yeah, a friend of mine, Ari Rastegar from Austin, Texas, was on the show. And that's what they do. They build these communities where it's one-stop shop. Your whole lifestyle is in the community where you live, the grocery store, the activities, all your amenities. And it's all based on technology too, where you just walk around with a card or a fob and you could just pay for things without carrying cash. And so it seems like that's a growing need. Let's switch gears. I love real estate. I'm a huge commercial real estate guy. I've been doing it for almost 3 decades. I could talk about it all day with you. I get excited, but you have so much more to unpack in your story. And I believe you did the first NFT crypto auction of its kind, which was, to me, just absolutely fascinating. What was the experience like for you? And what was that one off, or is it a one-off, or is there more to come? Is this more going to be a common practice for you? Like, walk me through like that experience for you. I do have a question about that though. I always wondered with crypto it's like a commodity. I mean, it's moving all the time in price. How does that work? If say the property is worth 4 million, okay, and that's where you land in your auction, is the currency converted before the auction, or how does that work? Because we looked at it for commercial real estate and we said, this is the frontier where we're going to have investors coming in our fund and they're going to say, hey, Ben, and to our leadership team, can you come in with crypto? And I was saying internally, I'm like, how would we ever do that? And so walk me through, how does that work? Because that to me is fascinating, with a moving currency and locking it in. How does that work?
Yeah, it's a great question, because that was one of the questions that early on when we were piecing this together, how would it work? I guess you could say we run the auction, and whether the person's bought in Binance, Bitcoin, and let's just assume they didn't pay cash. So straight after the auction, once that sale price has been agreed, that's when we had Trigon Trading to provide the transfer into cash. So let's say we buy it for 400 Bitcoin. It's okay, property sold. Within minutes after the property is sold, whatever that Bitcoin is holding at that particular point is then converted into cash, and then the sale goes through in cash.
When you love something, you can really commit to it. And that's what success is in life, whether it's personal or business. You have to be committed. And it's a very tough concept, James, for people to understand what commitment means. One of my dear colleagues, I was up in Los Angeles. I came from the OC to go see him, and he had a cold plunge in his backyard. And he said, all right, Ben, come here. He goes, take off your shirt. And I looked at him. I go, are you asking me to go in? He goes, no, eventually you will when you come back. But I want you to take off your shirt so you can put your arms in up to your shoulders in this 35-degree water. He goes, I want to see what commitment looks for you. And he says, no one's ever gotten past a minute. So I went a minute and a half, and it was because your mind is playing tricks on you and being committed. And what's so interesting about your story with this lady is that She had her passion. She was committed. She wasn't going to let anyone tell her otherwise. She can't get this done and create a successful business. That's what's so amazing about human beings, is that if you really put your mind to it and be committed, you can achieve anything. You're a perfect example. Look, you're an auctioneer, you're an actor, director, and I'm sure there's moments that you've gone through where you started questioning yourself and saying, am I good enough? Am I the right person? Can I do this? It's a total different industry than the auctioneer business. And you go out there and you do it. And that's what it's about. And so I commend you. I think it's a wonderful skill to have. And you have to tip your hat to that lady, because that's what it's about. I mean, I love those stories. So thank you for sharing. So the name of the show, James, is I Own It. It's owning every aspect of your life, being responsible. And that's why I wanted you on the show. We're all works in progress, as I'm sure you know. Can you share a recent example where you realized you had it wrong and you didn't own it fully?
Yeah, I recently started a company. I mean, one of the things I love to do is I have this saying: you put $10 in, you get $10 out. And it came to me from an athlete that I'd in the NFL that had put it in. He was referring to training. Like, you go to training, you put $10 in. Sure, you leave as soon as training's over. Guess what? Like, you'll play, your contract will expire, that's it. But you stay over time, you put $1,000 in training every time. And guess what? You're going to get a bigger contract. You're going to get more responsibility. And it's the same thing where with life, it's like, okay, well, there's an opportunity. I'd love to start a different business. And I sometimes do that. I look for ways with a business partner, what's in aviation? This might work with our network. But I had this one business. I said, I'm just going to go for it. You invest time and capital, and it didn't quite work. It didn't work. After three and a half months, it was this thing where I was like, hey, this hasn't gone to plan. So that's probably the most recent time when I've tried to put $1,000 in, and I thought I've got $10 out, but actually I've got the $1,000 out. It just hasn't been the outcome that I was looking for.
Oh, so well said. Well said. This is Ben Reinberg. I want to thank you again for listening to the I Own It podcast. Happy holidays and a healthy and profitable new year.
Thank you for listening to the I Own It podcast with Ben Reinberg. To hear our past episodes and connect with Ben, visit benreinberg.com.